1. Introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building, for just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, or RAWSEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this RAWSEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning. Wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025, and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives, and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Episode 57 DHN, May 13th, 2025 The Corruption of Trump Bribed with a Plane with Listening Devices. In episode 57 DHN 1A RAWSEP View 1B Shamelessness is the Trump Superpower 1C in Europe doubt has crept in 3 European diplomats on trusting America to United States. The corruption of Trump bribed with a plane with listening devices. RAWSEP View the plane from Qatar is surely studded with listening devices which violate United States national security, although Trump says the quiet part of being a traitor out loud and makes it seem like a joke, it is still corruption and traitorous too. The United States, 3 headlines. Google alerts about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and other solid fuel burning and other unnecessary and costly polluting burning instead of using clean energy heat pumps for home heating and heat pump rebates, which make them cheaper than wood burning. In 2025 May 13th, 2025 4 World U.S. Embassy AQ data halt ramped up government monitoring could save hundreds of lives. 5A United States paper sensors and smartphone app monitor personal smoke exposure. 5B United States RAWSEP View this is wrong as the Pope might say in a comment on reflection, since the Pope is concerned about slowing climate change and slowing air pollution. From the article headline Fight Fire with Fire. Thinning forests is a start, but experts say it is time to burn more. 5C United States Heat Pump Rebates. 6 Alaska Fairbanks RAWSEP View half measures are applauded, as if it is not possible to simply end indoor residential wood burning and start saving lives. 8A and 8B California wildfires. 8C California Santa Barbara County Air Pollution Control District launches Heat Clean Program. 9 Maine Portland Casco Bay Heat Pump Rebates. 10 Massachusetts Heat Pump Rebates. 11 Michigan Blendon Township Zeeland wood mulch fire. 12 New York and Chicago Illinois and California wood burning as a weight lifting exercise. RAWSEP View. There are healthy ways to practice weightlifting, and wood burning is not one of those ways. This article also mentions that wood burning is a costly endeavor. 13 Oregon Wasco County Antelope wildfires. 14 Utah Ogden Heat Pumps. 15 Washington Pullman PM 2.5 and monitoring paper sensors and smartphone app monitor personal smoke exposure. 16 Canada 18 years of daily PM 2.5 predictions 2005 to 2022 for a region of Western Canada. 17 Australia Heat Pump Rebates and the air source heat pump market. 18A United Kingdom Brighton and Hove RAWSEP View cozy is indeed a gross misrepresentation of indoor residential wood burning and a grotesque lie which ignores the negative health effects of indoor residential wood burning. From the article headlines Woke Council warned by Watchdog over anti-wood burning stove ad campaign. That Daily Mail. Brighton and Hove City Council has been warned by advertising watchdog, the advertising standards agency, over claims wood burning stoves are cozy. 18B United Kingdom Yateley Heath Woods Blackwater wildfires. 18C United Kingdom Britain. This is Britain on heat pumps, how a nationwide switch could help our planet. 18D United Kingdom Oxfordshire Abingdon The Times of London Heat Pump Rebates. 18E United Kingdom Sheffield burner alert no longer functional. 19 The Netherlands Limburg Province Environmental Agency wants Limburg to look into ban on wood burning. 20 Asia Northeast Asia PM 2.5 monitoring. 21 China PM 2.5 pollution characteristics. 22 PM 2.5 and human health main content. 1A RAWSEP View Trump is inserting himself into the lives of poor and middle-class voters because of his actions, mostly through executive orders that threaten the livelihoods and lives of average Americans. The pace at which the executive orders are signed and released makes it necessary to bring every last one that is relevantly destructive to public attention. Will clean energy heat pump rebates survive? The method of fighting the destruction is mainly through lawsuits against the Trump at this point. Also, the threat of being kicked out in 2026 may motivate Republicans in the Senate to stand up to Trump on key issues. 1B Shamelessness is the Trump Superpower excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times May 13th, 2025 Trump, who was well on his way to becoming one of the most corrupt presidents in American history, even before he said it would be stupid for the United States not to accept a plane worth hundreds of millions of dollars from Qatar to replace Air Force One repeatedly attacks his adversaries in part to mask his own violations of the law and the Constitution. A professor of public policy at the University of Michigan argued in an email that the Trump repeated description of Democrats and liberal programs as immoral is designed to win support for his agenda. Trump, as a politician, has used the populist framing of institutions as corrupt and illegitimate, and emphasis on DEI is just one flavor of that presumed corruption. Trump made his grievances the grievances of his supporters. A political scientist at Vanderbilt wrote by email, my own sense is that when people are talking about corruption, they really do mean the improper use of government funds for private gain. People see the use of those programs as lining the pockets of administrators and decision makers, but that is not primarily the way that I see the Republicans framing their opposition to DEI. Critical race theory and affirmative action policies. Other characterizations. Then corruption could be used by detractors such as discriminatory or brainwashing, etc. Fraud on the part of program participants seems different from corruption. Self-benefit on the part of decision makers. Opposition to means-tested programs, and the safety net is C as coming from indignation over perceived cheating or fraud by program participants. The Trump continuing claims of Democratic and liberal corruption have not prevented the steady erosion of the status of Trump himself. Since taking office, the Trump approval rating has been on a consistent downward trajectory, falling to 45.8% on May 12 from 50.5% on January 27. According to Real Clear Politics, over the same period, his disapproval rating rose to 50.1% from 44.3%. Any normal or rational politician looking at those numbers would seriously consider a major shift in direction. Trump, however, is neither normal nor rational. 1C in Europe doubt has crept in 3 European diplomats on trusting America excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates of 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, May 12, 2025. Ischinger is a former German ambassador to the United States and president of the Foundation Council of the Munich Security Conference. Ms. Goff is a former British ambassador to Georgia, Ukraine, and Sweden, and Landsbergis is a former Lithuanian foreign minister and former member of the European Parliament. Schmemann is their interviewer. Serge Schmemann hosted a video conversation with 3 former European diplomats, Wolfgang Ischinger of Germany, Judith Goff of Britain, and Gabrielius Landsbergis of Lithuania, to talk about how the Trump administration has profoundly shaken the U.S.-European foundation of shared ideals, commitment to freedom, economic ties, and democratic values. Serge Schmemann: what I would like to ask you as 3 prominent former diplomats is to reflect on what America meant to you in your work, how you react personally to the Trump approach to the bonds with Europe, and what you believe the impact may be on the world. Wolfgang Ischinger: I have spent a total of more than a dozen years in the country as a high school student, as a postgraduate student at Harvard Law School, as a young diplomat, and then in the early 2000s. For almost 5 years as ambassador. In those days I felt very confident as a German in the 1990s or 2000s that for the first time in many decades Germany was now on the right side of history, that after the years under the Kaiser and then the Nazis, Germany was identifying with the West and invited to be part of the West, especially by the United States. So the German relationship with the United States until now has been something that created tremendous joy and satisfaction for Germans. That is why I think what has happened in the West between the United States and her European allies and others has created more pain, more convulsion, more crisis in the mind of German elites than in the minds of most other European elites. Schmemann: Ms. Goff, can you identify a specific moment or situation in which the United States was critical to your own outlook? Judith Goff: I think there is a theme that runs through both of my postings, first as British ambassador to Georgia, but then as ambassador to Ukraine, which is that Britain and the United States were very much partners in terms of supporting the progression of democracy in both Georgia and Ukraine and fighting corruption in Ukraine, supporting reform, the rule of law, and human rights. What I felt as an ambassador was very much a sense of a partnership with America. Schmemann: Ms. Goff, today when you follow American handling of peace talks for Ukraine, how do you react? Goff: you know the vision and the goal is the correct one, which is to bring peace to Ukraine, and Ukraine has to be at the table, and so do the Europeans. Schmemann: Mr. Landsbergis, as a Lithuanian you are a citizen of a country directly threatened by a hostile Russia, and as foreign minister you have been a direct participant in the shaping of a post-Soviet universe. Can you describe a concrete instance when the United States shaped your perceptions or actions? Gabrielius Landsbergis: there is one particular point in history which I think is quite important to my country. This was just before Lithuania joined NATO. When President George W. Bush came, it was the first time a U.S. president visited my country. He gave a very memorable speech in which, at least as far as we know, he went off script because he was feeling really warm-hearted by the amount of people that had gathered there in the main square of Vilnius, all of them waving U.S. flags and chanting USA. And he said whoever would choose Lithuania as their enemy would choose United States as their enemy as well. Apparently these words were unscripted, yet they are now on a plaque on the town hall of Vilnius. A kid in school could probably quote these words. So this is how deeply our fate and our security are bound to our ally across the Atlantic. So you can imagine what not just me, but the whole country is experiencing right now. It is like something in your body being torn because we grew up with this, we lived with this, we believed in this. Schmemann: if the United States has indeed abdicated its role as the beacon of freedom, what is the alternative? What can or should Europe do? Landsbergis: first of all, leave the door open. I think that there are enough people in the United States who hold the same values we do, who want to be part of building the world in that idealistic image. I am convinced there will be a turnaround, but we cannot just wait until we are back in this reinforced, reinvigorated transatlantic arrangement. There are countries and people out there looking for a beacon of freedom for somebody to light it up. If the United States cannot do it, well, Europe has to do it. Schmemann: Judith Goff, you are still our closest partner. We need to keep sticking up for and articulating our values and interests. Schmemann: Wolfgang Ischinger: we should not despair about what some of the U.S. may see as unfortunate developments across the Atlantic. There are so many governors and senators and intellectuals and academics who are totally aware of how important American soft power has been and continues to be, how important the partnership and alliance and other links with Europe are for the United States. We need to remind our American friends that we are in this together. So engage. That would be my final word. Schmemann: in fact, that is exactly what we have tried to facilitate today, the chance to engage, to keep talking. So I want to thank the 3 of you very sincerely. To United States, the corruption of Trump accepting the bribe of a plane with listening devices. RAWSEP View, the plane from Qatar, is surely studded with listening devices which violate United States national security. Although Trump says the quiet part of being a traitor out loud and makes it seem like a joke, it is still corruption and traitorous to the United States. This bribe makes clear that Trump is going through the motions of being a president in order to line his own pockets the way Trump lines his pockets, which is so immediately, clearly threatening to the livelihoods and retirement accounts of poor and middle-income Americans, is his tariffs, which are a burdensome tax on average Americans in order to fund tax breaks for the rich. The editor breaks down this letter from an American to show that it makes 3 points. 1. Qatar defeats America. 2. China defeats America by returning America to the status quo before Trump imposed 145% tariffs on China. And 3. Yemen defeats America by remaining at a status quo before America began bombing campaign, which was famously revealed on Signal by a Hegseth breach of American security. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates of 501c3 nonprofit organization. Substack letters from an American. Heather Cox Richardson, May 12, 2025. 1. Qatar defeats America. The biggest news over the weekend was silence. The silence of Republicans. They refused to disavow the statement of White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller that the administration is looking at suspending the writ of habeas corpus that is essentially declaring martial law. They have also stayed quiet after the administration announced it was planning to accept the gift of a $400 million luxury Boeing 747-8 plane from the Qatari royal family. Trump would use the plane as Air Force One during the rest of his presidency and take it with him when he leaves office. This is in keeping with the refusal of 53 Republican senators to answer questions from Rolling Stone after Kristen Welker of NBC asked Trump, "Do not you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?" And he answered, "I do not know." Only Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, went on the record posting on social media, "Following the Constitution is not a suggestion, it is a guiding force for all of us who work on behalf of the American people. Do you agree?" It seems as if Republicans who are not on board the MAGA train are hoping the courts or reality will stop the authoritarian overreach of Trump. There is near universal consensus that only Congress can suspend habeas corpus, and that unilateral suspensions by the president are per se unconstitutional. It will trip up the Trump plan to take possession of the Qatari gift retrofitting the luxury plane with the defense capabilities and security protections necessary for Air Force One. Will take years, not months. Air Force One is not a specific airplane, it is the call sign given to any Air Force aircraft carrying the President of the United States. Still, the silence of Republicans matters. Whether the Trump plans are all possible is not the point. He and the members of his administration are deliberately attacking the fundamental principles of our democratic republic that lawmakers who swore an oath to uphold. Those principles are choosing to remain silent makes them complicit in that attack. The framers of the U.S. Constitution recognized that democratic government was a new departure from a world in which the monarchs of the world made deals amongst themselves. They placed strong guardrails around the behavior of future chief executives to make sure they would not sell the American people out to foreign leaders. No person holding any office of profit or trust under the United States shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept of any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. They wrote in the Constitution an emolument is a payment. Until the Trump administration, the expectation was that presidents would not accept foreign gifts, let alone bribes. U.S. law prohibits presidents from accepting gifts worth more than $480, gifts worth more than that are considered a gift to the American people and are transferred to the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, the same agency that oversees presidential libraries. President George W. Bush gave up a puppy that was a gift from the leader of Bulgaria when he left office after his first term. Experts estimate Trump retained more than $250,000 worth of gifts. Trump loyalist Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Trump top White House lawyer David Warrington signed off on the Trump acceptance of the Qatari jet. They concluded it was an acceptable gift because while it will be exclusively for the Trump use, the Flying Palace will be transferred from the Qataris to the U.S. Air Force and then to the Trump Presidential Library, and that it is not tied to a specific presidential act. In 2019, Bondi was a registered lobbyist for Qatar, earning $115,000 a month in defending his planned acceptance of the plane. Trump turned the emoluments clause on its head. That in turn turned on its head the idea of a democratic republic in which the government rejects the idea of foreign leaders colluding for their own profit and reached back to that world the framers of the U.S. Constitution rejected. He posted, "So the fact that the Defense Department is getting a gift free of charge of a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One temporarily in a very public and transparent transaction so bothers the crooked Democrats that they insist we pay top dollar for the plane. Anybody can do that. The Dems are world-class losers." MAGA. This is the voice of old world autocracy, those who care that our Republican government not be dependent on foreign states, that our elected leaders not take favors from foreign princes. They are losers. This is corruption, and not just in the sense that a government official is getting a payoff. It is corruption in the old-fashioned meaning of the term, that the body politic is being corrupted and poisoned by a sickness that must be cured, or it will be fatal. That corruption is the old world system the framers tried to safeguard against, and it is visible anew in the relationship of the Trumps with Qatar. The Trump family connections to Qatar are long-standing. In 2022, the chair of the Senate Committee on Finance, Ron Wyden, Democrat of Oregon, and the chair of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, Carolyn B. Maloney, Democrat of New York, wrote to Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin III, asking for information in their ongoing investigations into whether financial conflicts of interest of former senior White House advisor Jared Kushner may have led him to improperly influence U.S. tax, trade, and national security policies for his own financial gain. Kushner is married to the Trump daughter and was a key presidential advisor in the Trump first term. The letter explained that Qatar had repeatedly refused to bail out the badly leveraged Kushner property at 666 Fifth Avenue, now known as 660 Fifth Avenue, in 2018. But after Kushner talked to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and the two states imposed a blockade on Qatar, then Qatar suddenly threw in the necessary cash shortly after the Saudi and UAE governments lifted the blockade, with Kushner taking credit for brokering the agreement. Wyden and Maloney noted that the economic blockade of Qatar may have been used as leverage for the 666 Fifth Avenue bailout and was not supported by other officials, including the Secretaries of State and Defense. They warned that Kushner may have prioritized his own financial interests over the national interest. The pursuit of personal financial gain should not dictate U.S. tax, trade, and national security policies. In this administration, the corruption is even more direct. On May 1, 2025, the Trump Organization cut a deal with Qatari Diar, a company established by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Qatar in 2005 to coordinate Qatar real estate development priorities together with Saudi Arabian company Dar Global, which has close ties to the Saudi government. The Qatari company will build a $5.5 billion Trump International Golf Club in Qatar. Trump heads to the Middle East tomorrow to visit Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, three of the wealthiest nations in the world, in search of business deals. Republicans spent the 4 years of the term of Democratic President Joe Biden calling to impeach him for allegedly accepting a $5 million payment from Ukraine. The source for that story later admitted to making it up and pleaded guilty of lying to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and yet the Republicans are silent now. 2. China defeats America. Trump reverses what he started with recent tariffs on China after the weekend. Monday started with the Trump announcement that it has agreed to a 90-day pause in the 145% tariffs Trump imposed on Chinese goods and on the 125% tariffs China imposed in retaliation. Both nations will cut tariffs 115% during that period, bringing the U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods to 30% and the Chinese counter tariffs to 10%. The stock market rose at the news, while the Administration hailed this as a breakthrough agreement. As economist Paul Krugman pointed out, this was not a case of China backing down. Tariffs by China were a response to Trump, which threw the U.S. economy into a tailspin. When Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent indicated Trump wanted a way out, China agreed. Quietly scraped into the memory hole is the Trump insistence that his high tariffs would bring old-fashioned manufacturing back to the United States. Still, Paul Krugman notes a tariff of 30% on goods from China is still really high combined with the 10% across-the-board tariffs Trump has imposed on goods from other countries. Krugman estimates that the average tariff is up about 10% since Trump took office, from about 3% to about 13%. Krugman also notes that the tariffs have only been paused, making economic uncertainty worse. Trump appears to relish uncertainty because it keeps attention glued on him. Such uncertainty is good for television ratings, but terrible for the economy, as executives cannot plan for the future. 3. Yemen defeats America. Trump followed a similar pattern in his bombing campaign against the Houthis in Yemen. He thought he could stop Houthi attacks on shipping in the Red Sea by bombing the Houthis, and he expected results within 30 days. After 31 days, the journalists report the U.S. did not even have air superiority over the Houthis, who shot down 7 U.S. drones, each of which cost about $30 million, and continued to fire at U.S. ships. In the first month, the U.S. campaign cost about $1 billion and lost two $67 million aircraft. Eager to get out, Trump agreed to stop the bombing campaign in return for the Houthis leaving U.S. ships alone, but without any promises from the Houthis to stop the more general attacks that had led Trump to start the U.S. strikes in the first place. On May 5, Trump ended the operations and declared victory for their part, the Houthis posted on social media. Yemen defeats America. 3. Headlines: Google alerts about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and other solid fuel burning and other unnecessary and costly polluting burning instead of using clean energy heat pumps for home heating and heat pump rebates, which make them cheaper than wood burning in 2025. May 13, 2025. 4. World U.S. Embassy AQ data halt. Ramped up government monitoring could save hundreds of lives. Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air Korea. The data pause weakens air quality monitoring efforts in 44 countries across the globe and leaves 6 without any monitoring at all. World PM 2.5 deaths. Warming climate making fine particulate matter from wildfires more deadly and expensive. Science Daily. The research also found a $160 billion economic burden associated with those 15,000 extra wildfire PM 2.5 deaths. Economic burden from mortality. 5. United States paper sensors and smartphone app monitor personal smoke exposure. Phys.org. Smoke exposure to understand and mitigate its health impacts more effectively. Human exposure to wood smoke is linked to numerous health issues. 5b. United States RAWSEP View This is wrong, as the Pope might say in a comment on reflection, since the Pope is concerned about slowing climate change and slowing air pollution. From the article headline: Fight Fire with Fire. Thinning forests is a start, but experts say it is time to burn more. Yahoo! Americans prime the woods for disaster by snuffing out low-intensity fires that restore balance and by emitting the carbon that drives climate. 5c. United States cool down heat pump rebates. Homeowner seeks straightforward advice after considering super efficient HVAC for newly. The cool down heat pumps outperform traditional heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems in energy efficiency while delivering both heating and cooling. United States cool down heat pump rebates. Homeowner opens up after scoring enormous rebate on brand new HVAC system. The cool down. One Redditor shared how upgrading to a Tosit TU36 24-watt heat pump led to a $10,000 gas rebate. United States cool down heat pump rebates. Homeowner opens up about a massive energy bill savings after upgrading to ultra efficient the cool down. Additionally, households that install heat pump water heaters may qualify for federal rebate programs worth thousands more in certain states. These United States cool down heat pump rebates. Homeowner searches for appliance advice after learning about lucrative government rebates. The cool down standard. Water heaters need an oil or gas tank to keep your shower steaming. A heat pump water heater uses a simple refrigerant system to pull heat. United States cool down heat pump rebates. HVAC techs masterfully debunk common myths about next-gen heat pumps. The cool down. Want to save on your home heating costs? This YouTuber video explains how heat pumps can do just that. 5c2 United States House Digest heat pump rebates. The kitchen appliance you can get for less because of the Inflation Reduction Act. House Digest homeowners can already qualify for government rebates on AC alternatives like heat pumps or other energy-efficient products that can help with comfort. 5c3 United States Inside Climate News heat pump rebates as federal incentive rollbacks loom. Could the heat pump revolution stall out? Inside Climate News heat pumps and other home electrification technologies. 3 years later, economic data suggests the rollout has been stopped and start while heat pump rebates for homeowners, including up to $8,000 to install heat pumps instead. Advocates are now holding their breath as a Republican-controlled 5c4 United States National Public Radio NPR heat pump rebates. Need help switching appliances from gas to electric? A coach can help. NPR Williamson says she called contractors. Some claim to have never heard of a heat pump water heater, while others tried to convince her to install. 5c5 United States Yahoo heat pump rebates. Homeowner searches for unfiltered advice after receiving alarming installation quote for next. Yahoo! The Post brings to light the benefits of switching to heat pumps to weatherize your home. United States Yahoo heat pump rebates. Homeowner seeks financial advice on the benefits of a new water heater. We use half of Yahoo through the Inflation Reduction Act. Eligible homeowners can get a point-of-sale rebate of up to $1,750 when transitioning to an Energy Star certified. United States Yahoo heat pump rebates. Need a new HVAC? You can snag $8,000 in government incentives to upgrade Yahoo. Fortunately, many helpful tools exist, such as Energy Sage Heat Pump Marketplace, which is like an Expedia for heat pumps and other clean tech. Such United States Yahoo heat pump rebates. You can grab around $1,500 from the government to upgrade your water heater. Yahoo! In addition to saving on utilities, homeowners who opt for heat pumps may qualify for
thousands of dollars in installation costs, rebates, and tax. 6 Alaska Fairbanks RAWSEP View half measures are applauded, as if it is not possible to simply end indoor residential wood burning and start saving lives. From the article headline: Long-term efforts to clean air in the second largest city in Alaska are paying off. Alaska Beacon. He also remembers old boilers that belched smoke, causing some to since wood burning remains the top source of particulate pollution. Alaska Fairbanks. New Anchorage ordinance could change criminal fire code. The Alaska news source Anchorage Mayor Suzanne LaFrance introduced an ordinance that could expand criminal charges for a larger range of negligent burning within the 7 Arizona heat pump rebates after delays. Arizona rebate program for heat pumps efficient appliances is set to launch. KJZZ qualifying households will be able to apply for rebates of 50% to 100% of costs for appliances like heat pumps or electric stoves. Biden 8A. California, Los Angeles and Fresno. Breaking new wildfire reported in Los Angeles County on May 10. Fresno B wildfire breaks out in Los Angeles County, CA. Fresno B. The wildfire has been burning on private land. Currently there is breaking wood fire reported in Nevada County on May 10. Updated May 10. California, Los Angeles lumberyard repurposing wood from trees burned and eaten. Fire. KTVZ Los Angeles, California. Call KCBS. Boyle Heights lumberyard is working to repurpose the wood from trees left damaged by the eaten fire. Turning 8B. California, Sacramento. Breaking brush fire reported in Los Angeles County on May 10. Sacramento B wildfire breaks out in Los Angeles County, CA. Brush fire has been burning on federal land managed by the United States Forest Service. Wood fire reported in Nevada County on May 10. Fires. California, Sacramento. Breaking wood fire reported in Nevada County on May 10. Sacramento B wood fire has been burning on private land. Currently there is no information on the containment of the fire and the cause of it has yet to be 8C. California, Santa Barbara County Air Pollution Control District launches Heat Clean program. The Santa Barbara Independent Wood smoke contains gases and particulate matter and can harm the lungs and heart. Historically the APCD voluntary programs geared toward residential. 9 Maine, Portland. Casco Bay Heat Pump Rebates. News Radio WGN. Matt Gagnon interviews Mike Hedge from Casco Bay Heat Pump about changes to the efficiency Maine rebate system for heat pumps. 10 Massachusetts Heat Pump Rebates. Homeowners say state ignoring cost and push toward all-electric heat. WCVB Massachusetts is pushing homeowners to switch from oil or gas heat to electric heat pumps. Heat pump with the solar panels on the roof of their 11 Michigan Blendon Township. Zeeland wood mulch fire at Zeeland area mulch supplier burns for nearly 12 hours. WODTV.com. Multiple fire departments responded to a fire at a mulch supplier near Zeeland that burned for nearly 12 hours and sent thick smoke into the 12 New York and Chicago, Illinois and California. Wood burning as a weightlifting exercise. RAWSEP View There are healthy ways to practice weightlifting and wood burning is not one of those ways. This article also mentions that wood burning is a costly endeavor and so is, according to RAWSEP, a foolish endeavor as well. In these economically perilous times, however, for the rich people, wood burning is a diversion from reality. Although the reality of air pollution cannot be ignored by near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners as well as near neighbors of outdoor residential wood burners. Is this puff piece about wood burning a result of a bribe of a handy-dandy wood stove to one who is already wealthy? RAWSEP suspects that bribes to Trump can make bribes a fad, a fashion, and a folly, if only to near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners who are sickened by the wood smoke entering their yards and infiltrating their homes. New York Times. You are breaking my heart by covering this story as if choosing to burn wood is a test of sufficient masculinity rather than as unnecessary air pollution inflicted on near neighbors. From the article. Headline: a culinary amenity that may be too hot to handle. The New York Times. It takes a strong back and a robust budget to put a wood-burning oven in your kitchen, a culinary amenity that may be too hot to handle. RAWSEP View. This subject puts the editor of RAWSEP in a quandary. Should coverage of this air-polluting issue be one treating indoor residential wood-burning for costly and time-consuming wood-burning requiring physical exertion at least by one's servants be treated like an addiction, like cigarette smoking causing lung cancer, inducing secondhand smoke? No, because inhaled wood smoke is not addictive because it contains no addictive nicotine. Should coverage of this air-polluting issue be treated as too costly to attempt? No, because in this article all participants are wealthy and willing to spend thousands for a method of cooking that is, as mentioned before, without intrinsic value since it is time-consuming and filthy even if the cleanup is done by servants. The best way to treat this subject is from the point of view of hypnotic advertising of his physically harmful exercise and cooking futility. Cooking by burning wood both requires physical exertion far exceeding the benefit of weightlifting. Weightlifting of wood by servants in an atmosphere of PM 2.5 air pollution will shorten the lives of the servants employed for this purpose. The servants will not be drawn to standing around the fire but forced to endure unhealthy conditions to earn their pay. And are people really drawn to standing around a fire? Is standing around a fire a true primitive need, or is this harmful thought implanted in the brains of susceptible individuals with money to waste by that ultimate culprit, advertising? The editor of RAWSEP chooses that culprit advertising as the instigator of wood-fired cooking by the wealthy in 2025 when there are clean alternatives to cooking by burning wood. The hot-button issue of calling wood burning cozy and therefore misinforming the public through deceptive advertising is being debated in the United Kingdom. Now see the story under United Kingdom below. There is also remorse by buyers of wood-burning ovens because even if buyers can afford the economic price, they often find PM 2.5 smoke billowing inside their homes when they would prefer that the smoke be mostly vented outside where it can waft into the yards and infiltrate the homes of near neighbors, therefore having the outside impact desired on their hyperlocalized community of shortening and ending lives of near neighbors or perhaps servants in living quarters out back and driving up the costs to near neighbors of both healthcare and unnecessary and cost-prohibitive funerals. The editor of RAWSEP is convinced that people do not intrinsically or even subconsciously want to stand around wood-burning fires. Humans who are sentient flee from wood-burning wildfire smoke because they want to breathe and they want to continue to live what had been their formerly healthy lives, and even living trees close their pores against PM 2.5 from nearby wood-burning wildfire emissions, like voters for Trump in 2024. Those exposed to the PM 2.5 emissions from indoor residential wood burning for home cooking will eventually have remorse as buyers into the advertising myth. Perhaps the remorse will come on the deathbed of the wood burning appliance buyer, or more likely the remorse will come from the near neighbor, him or herself, on their deathbed when they have remorse that unfortunately they bought a house next to a wood burning appliance user who vented the PM 2.5 into the yard of the near neighbors and sickened them all for the sake of interior design. Apparently a mantelpiece with a bookcase below it could serve as a more attractive and functional use of space in the home of a wealthy person if the bookcase below the decorative mantelpiece is stocked with scientifically accurate and up-to-date medical books and fine bindings replaced as new discoveries about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Pile up perhaps excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, May 6, 2025. It takes a strong back and a robust budget to put a wood-burning oven in your kitchen. A grill is set into a column of shiny green tiles at one end of a kitchen. Dozens of brown logs are stacked underneath it. A wood-fired grillwork grill installed in a kitchen located in the western suburbs of Chicago. May 6, 2025. This article is part of our design special section about how food inspires designers to Make and do surprising things. The monster was dirty, some would call it ugly, almost everyone said make it go away, but for an Oakland, California woman it was love. Smack in the center of her kitchen was a built-in brick grill and rotisserie original to the 1953 mid-century modern ranch house in the hills of Oakland, California. Naysayers, including builders, real estate agents and family, warned her that it was a fire hazard and could crumble in an earthquake. That the outdated behemoth would do no favors to the value of the property. The Oakland, California woman, a designer whose office is in Sonoma County, California, ended up demolishing the kitchen in a renovation she completed in 2020 but was adamant about keeping the built-in oven. When she decided to sell the house in 2021, she received 18 offers over the list price of $1.5 million. The oven was well received, noted her real estate agent, a woman who estimated that it elevated the value of the home by $300,000 because it was quaint and operational, more or less, which was a point of interest for the cooking-oriented clientele of the area. The people who wanted to purchase the home put a lot of value on the rotisserie, adding a similar desirable features to the property usually increase offers by $50,000 to $100,000. This house ended up selling for $2.45 million in large part because of the frenzied pandemic market. Wood-burning ovens are regular denizens of outdoor kitchens and backyard patios. Hail the pizza king or queen. But building a hearth-like ensemble in the heart of a home is a different story. It takes moxie and ingenuity and sometimes a crane. May 6, 2025. Which came first, the chicken or the exquisitely finished cabinet? May 7, 2025. For a man in San Diego, a healthcare executive who is of Italian descent, his grandparents owned an Italian restaurant on the north end of Boston. The kitchen of his dreams would not be complete without a place to bake Neapolitan pizza. His interior designer, a woman, was worried about smoke billowing inside the kitchen once the pie crisped up inside an 800-degree Fahrenheit Cova. Lucky happenstance, a shared wall with an outdoor patio fireplace solved the problem. A 42-inch diameter wood-burning dome was installed in a cavity and enclosed with concrete blocks. The ventilation pipe came out of the top of the dome so that the oven had its own flue. Others who covet wood-fired ovens in their kitchens have to build them from scratch. The construction is as complicated or as simple as building a fireplace. You need a foundation and proper ventilation and an exhaust to draw the smoke up, said a man who is a New York City architect for the kitchen oven. Original Spanish colonial ranch house in western Texas. He added both a pizza oven and a South American grill known as an asado. The asado came with modern amenities, including a stainless steel carriage that could be raised and lowered as the stacks of burning logs turned to coal. Fireproof light bulbs put a spotlight on the action. Mesquite, cherry and hickory logs were stacked below. From a planning standpoint, you do not want to run outside to get your wood. Signing on to such culinary throwbacks means giving up the convenience of a quick meal at a working farm in Hudson, New York. A chicken dinner can take up to 7 hours to prepare, 4 hours for the 40-inch diameter wood-fired oven to warm up, and 3 more to roast the bird. For a woman at an interior designer involved with the project, the wait time is not a big deal. Slow cooking brings people together and reminds us to put away devices and return to primitive and simple living, she said. The farm, which was founded by Abby Rockefeller, the ecologist granddaughter of John D. Rockefeller, is scheduled to open its doors to overnight guests on Thursday. Rates start at $1,600 per night in the western suburbs of Chicago. A couple of professional chefs asked a woman interior designer to go modern with their private kitchen inferno. She installed a wood-fired grill or grill in a column of glossy green tile. It takes 20 to 30 kiln-dried logs to get the proper coal base, so the process is expensive and impractical unless you know what you are doing. If her clients were to do it over, she added, they would put in a gas line. The exertion of installing these behemoths also can be expensive and impractical. A woman, founder of an architecture company with headquarters in Annapolis, Maryland, needed a crane to lower a pizza oven into a basement wine cellar that was used for entertaining. Venting is another challenge. The woman in California found out the hard way that the original ventilation system was not up to par, rather it was irreversibly capped below the roof. My ventilation plan was to turn the vent hood of the range on high and open all the windows and doors in advance of firing up the grill to get air circulating. All was well until I threw the steaks on, but once they began cooking, the dripping fat caused fire to flare. She finished off the steaks in the broiler. The oven, which she discovered lacked a temperature gauge, became filthy after each use, she said, and cleanup was not a breeze. The appliance that drove up the value of her home turned out to be less about cooking and more of a design detail, a showpiece paying homage to the original architectural features of the home. How much will charm set you back? Expect to pay $3,700 for a version of the California indoor pizza oven and more than $8,000 for the wood-burning oven lowered into the basement. Then there is the cost of surrounding materials and additional labor, which can tack on $10,000 to $30,000 more. Experts say consumers are not phased. The owner of Grillworks said orders for built-in wood-fired kitchen grills rose 70% during the pandemic and interest remains strong. We are seeing a natural progression from renovation to new home builders asking for our grills, he said, and rather than simply dropping a grill onto a patio, they wanted aesthetically integrated into their space. People intrinsically and maybe subconsciously like to stand and sit around the fire, but it is one thing to toast marshmallows and another thing to cook dinner. 13 Oregon, Wasco County, Antelope. Wildfires. Warming climate making fine particulate matter from wildfires more deadly and expensive. Eureka alert. Plumes of smoke are seen from miles away as a rangeland wildfire burns outside of the small town of Antelope in Wasco County, Oregon. 14 Utah Ogden Heat Pumps. Mitsubishi Electric all-climate heat pumps chosen by Weber State University to help meet business wire. The Ogden, Utah-based university has installed a ductless water source Mitsubishi Electric hybrid VRF heat pump system in the Sky Suites, a building. 15 Washington Pullman PM 2.5 and monitoring paper sensors and smartphone app monitor personal smoke exposure. WSU Insider. Washington State University WSU team creates system to provide quick, inexpensive monitoring for firefighters and others exposed to smoke. Human exposure to wood smoke is linked to 16 Canada 18 years of daily PM 2.5 predictions 2005 to 2022 for a region of Western Canada. ScienceDirect.com. Particulate matter PM 2.5 at a spatial and temporal resolution relevant for ongoing health studies. The random forest model was trained in 17 Australia Heat Pump Rebates, and the air source heat pump market set to reach $1.4 Globe Newswire. The demand for air source heat pumps ASHPs in Australia is increasing steadily, driven by their application in residential and commercial heating. 18 A United Kingdom. Brighton and Hove. RAWSEP View cozy is indeed a gross misrepresentation of indoor residential wood burning and a grotesque lie which ignores the negative health effects of indoor residential wood burning. From the article headlines, Woke Council warned by Watchdog over anti-wood burning stove ad campaign. That Daily Mail. Brighton and Hove City Council has been warned by advertising watchdog, the advertising standards agency, over claims wood burning stoves are cozy. 18B United Kingdom. Yateley Heath Woods Blackwater. Wildfires. Fire crews tackle woodland and heath blazes. BBC. The first in woodland at Yateley Heath Woods Blackwater broke out on Saturday at about 1900 BST and took more than 3 hours to put out 18C United Kingdom Britain. This is Britain on heat pumps. How a nationwide switch could help our planet. The Guardian. For a growing number of property and business owners, upgrading with a heat pump means a move away from fossil fuels to a more carbon friendly. This is Britain on heat pumps. How a nationwide switch could help our planet. For a growing number of property and business owners, upgrading with a heat pump means a move away from fossil fuels to a more carbon-friendly alternative. Paid for by NIBE. About this content, Duncan Jeffries. Tuesday. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Guardian, May 6, 2025. 3 examples. Example 1. Ryan Urquhart knows how to create a sustainable home, drawing on his skills as a director of architectural and building consultants. Baxter Design Company. He self-built an eco-friendly house in Aberdeenshire. A key element was an air source heat pump which was installed alongside underfloor heating, mechanical ventilation and a heat recovery system. Our NIBE system has been reliable, efficient and keeps us warm and comfortable throughout the year, says Urquhart. We have been particularly impressed by how seamlessly our systems work together to provide both low carbon heating and balanced ventilation, reducing energy consumption and minimizing our energy costs. Urquhart is one of more than 250,000 home and small business owners who have recently installed a heat pump instead of burning fossil fuels. These systems efficiently use electricity and the refrigeration cycle to move heat from the air, ground or water into a building. The chair of the Energy Transitions Commission (ETC), an international think tank and a heat pump owner, likens them to an air conditioner that works in reverse. If you switch to an air source heat pump in a semi-detached home with an old G-rated gas boiler, you would save approximately 2,900 kilograms of CO2 emissions a year, according to the Energy Saving Trust. That is equivalent to flying from Cardiff to Vancouver and back. Given that home heating accounts for 18% of the total greenhouse gas emissions of the UK, and with UK net zero by 2050 commitment drawing ever nearer, it is clear that more homes need one. In fact, the recent report of the ETC on achieving zero carbon buildings argues that heating can and should be almost entirely electrified, primarily with heat pumps. As the UK continues to decarbonize its electricity system, the amount of emissions saved will also only increase. Heat pumps are also significantly more efficient than gas or oil boilers, producing 3 to 5 times more heat for every unit of electricity used. Almost 100,000 of them were sold in the UK in 2020, for a 63% increase from the previous year, including those with and without government subsidies. However, that is still a long way off the UK government target of 600,000 installations annually by 2028. Cost is an issue. Heat pumps are more expensive to buy and install than gas boilers, something the government is trying to address by offering grants of £7,500 through its boiler upgrade scheme to people in England and Wales. Grants of between £7,500 and £9,000 are available in Scotland. The high cost of electricity in the UK relative to gas may also have hindered sales somewhat, although high-temperature heat pumps can achieve output temperatures of up to 80 C. Owners of certain regular models whose homes are hard to heat may require backup heating when the weather is very cold. However, it is a myth that you need perfect insulation to properly heat your home with a heat pump. A lot of people will find that a heat pump gives them adequate heat for the vast majority of days in the year. Even if they have a relatively poorly insulated house, there is still a strong argument for looking carefully at all the insulation options, but as they say, do not make the best the enemy of the good. Heat pump owners helping the planet. As the home of Urquhart was a self-build, he was able to include a range of modern insulation measures, including an insulated concrete framework (ICF). This consists of hollow blocks or panels made from insulating materials which lock together to provide a formwork system. That concrete is then poured into ICF, holds heat throughout the day and releases it slowly at night, creating an almost igloo-like effect. This meant Urquhart could install a smaller heating system than he might otherwise have needed, keeping costs down during the build and reducing the energy bills of the family to about £100. In the summer, the system also emits very little noise, becoming almost unnoticeable even in the winter months. The entire project was inspired by his father, who self-built the home Urquhart grew up in and who has in turn been inspired to install a heat pump in his property situated just 300 yards away. Another NIBE heat pump owner who lives in Shropshire describes it as a fit and forget technology. One do not have to do anything to it. There is simple integration and ease of use. On the My Uplink app you can see temperatures, energy logs. He feels that heat pumps are ultimately the future of heating. They are not to shy away from it. All they are to be embraced. There is the saving of the money, ease of use, dealer backup. There is nothing not to like about them. Example 2. Another man has heat pumps at home and at his business. That man owns 2 residential heat pumps, an air source, one at a property in Surrey which replaced a gas boiler, and a water source, one at his Georgian home near Weymouth, which draws heat from a nearby river. It also helps to further counteract the effects of the climate crisis by cooling the river itself. He has additionally installed an air source heat pump at his Weymouth restaurant. Installing a heat pump within the grade 2 listed Old Fish Market was not without its challenges. The building is very difficult to insulate because of its listed status, but I did not want that to stop us. A new first floor with a water heating system was added to the building. This is powered by a heat pump in a mezzanine area and provides an ideal level of heat for seated diners. Its byproduct is cold air, which, believe it or not, is vented onto the cook line to keep the chefs cool. Example 3 is art teacher Emma Lewis. Cold spells of weather are no barrier to installing a heat pump. Emma Lewis, an art teacher and part-time artist, wanted to improve the EPC rating of her stone cottage, which is situated in one of the most inclement parts of Yorkshire. As electrification becomes more prevalent, we felt the need to switch to a more sustainable way of powering and heating our home. She says we were fortunate to benefit from the boiler upgrade scheme grant, and since the rise from £5,000 to £7,500, we decided to replace our aging oil boiler with a high-temperature heat pump. She feels that everybody can ultimately contribute to improving the environment. The decision to have a heat pump felt like a logical step as we explored improving our home. She says we have removed the single largest contributor to our carbon footprint. 18D United Kingdom, Oxfordshire, Abingdon. The Times of London. Heat pump rebates. Are heat pumps financially worth it? The Times. Until he installed a heat pump and new radiators in his Victorian semi in Abingdon, Oxfordshire in October, he had always taken it for granted that boiler upgrade scheme heat pump subsidy policy impacts full coverage. 18 United Kingdom, Sheffield. Burner alert, no longer functional. Burning injustice. Are wood burners in West Sheffield polluting the East Sheffield air? Sheffield Tribune, May 8, 2025. The article heralded the launch of a new online alert system, but 3 years later burner alert is no longer functional and wood burning stoves are. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. Burning injustice. Are wood burners in West Sheffield polluting the air of East Sheffield? Not all harms are visible. People do not want to cause harm. That was the title of the 2022 article in the Sheffield Tribune on the growing concern around air pollution created by wood-burning stoves. The article heralded the launch of a new online alert system, but 3 years later Burner Alert is no longer functional and wood-burning stoves are still very much de rigueur. Find any recently renovated house in the city listed for over £500,000 on Rightmove and the chances are it will have a sleek modern stove, and if it has not been renovated it probably has an open fire with a homely stack of logs next to it. Sheffield City Council estimates that 1 in 20 or 5% of Sheffield deaths are linked to poor air quality. That is quite a staggering figure, yet there is a sense it is too abstract a problem to register on the radar for people. If the death of your loved one was contributed to by air pollution, you are very unlikely to know it. Wood burning is a major source of a different yet equally important pollutant, small particulate matter PM. Wood burning generates large amounts of PM 2.5, the smaller of the two categories and arguably the most dangerous, as its size allows it to reach deep into the lungs and also enter the bloodstream. It is associated with a range of significant health conditions including asthma, cardiovascular disease, and lung cancer. Government sources state that homes burning wood indoors contributed 11% of total PM 2.5 emissions in 2023. This was less than vehicles, 21%, but whereas vehicles are spread around the country, the same cannot be said for wood-burning stoves. This is especially true in Sheffield. 52 comments excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Great piece highlighting wood burners. Personally, I do not understand why we need heating by burning stuff when we have progressed to much cleaner and safer way. We do not need them. They are bought as a status symbol by the middle classes. Great article. Nobody needs a wood burner and evidence of harm is clear. They should be phased out starting with a ban on new installations. Their attractiveness would be greatly diminished if the evidence on internal air pollution was more widely disseminated. I think you are right. Education on the damage they are doing to themselves is the way to sort this and reduce emissions. All leaving the house. I cannot afford to heat and choking on the pollution caused by others more ostentatiously heating. There's the prevailing wind is westerly across the country. The nicer areas of our cities are built on the west side in Sheffield. This would mean that people living on the west side would not normally get industrially polluted air from the east side of town. Wood burning stoves look like a good idea. Now we are finding they are not. Phase them out. I do not agree that it is widely accepted that burning wood is a cheaper form of heating. That is the response you tend to get from the pyromaniacs on FOSS 11 Facebook group. Fireplace Specialist magazine have deliberately chosen electric heating as the comparison as it is the most expensive by a mile. They are referring to old-fashioned storage heater electric radiators rather than heat pumps. Gas, which is by far the most common heating fuel in urban areas, is less than 1/3 of the price of electricity on a kilowatt-hour basis, 6.99p versus 27.03p. This completely blows their savings out of the water. Yes, you are absolutely correct that gas is significantly cheaper than electricity, and that is why the comparison was chosen. Hence the comment about neutrality. Figures for wood vary and depend on the type of wood, but I feel a saving over gas can be achieved. It is just not as eye-catching as the marketing would have you believe. Of course, you then have to factor in installation costs, chimney sweeping, etc. And we know that many people cut corners with unsafe sources burning MDF and treated wooden pallets, but the core argument here is about safety and pollution. I hope that came across clearly. A modest cost saving is irrelevant because they produce so many harmful toxins. Are those costs for burning proper wood or the cheap dodgy stuff they get from a guy on Facebook? The latter is obviously cheaper, but the risks are even higher. It is a huge problem. I have seen several. Would anyone like these pallets? Posts, and you know they will end up being burned. Yep, and people seem proud to boast about doing it as well. You have no idea what they have been treated with. I have a poorly insulated terrace in S11. Found myself choking on smoke from very local wood burners when it was colder, waiting to improve insulation before colder weather. I have a wood burner, though I rarely use it. I am happy to give it up. I have been surprised at how expensive it is to run and the pollution more significant than I had thought. Time for it to go. We stopped using ours for these very reasons. We too got it 15 years ago and thought it was a good replacement for gas heat, but that was obviously wrong. It is truly horrible cycling home from work up a steep hill where people are burning wood. It is good to encounter someone who just goes where the evidence leads them and will say oops, that was a mistake, and act upon those second thoughts. Some very nice neighbors of ours have just had wood burners installed. It is surprising that people in the posher and presumably better educated west and south of Sheffield either do not know about the damage caused by wood burners, or they do not believe it, or they just do not care. We are quite rightly angered by seeing polluted water, even though the water we drink is generally of very high quality. So why are we so complacent about the air we and our children take into our bodies? We cannot choose not to breathe. Nice neighbors is not a sarcastic comment, by the way. They are lovely people. Yes, I believe it is called cognitive dissonance. Signing petitions is easy. Living up to the things you claim to support is just too much. On my local area Facebook page, people who care very much about polluting cars and sewage-filled rivers become very defensive when wood burning stoves are mentioned. As an asthma sufferer, I hate them. The stoves, not the neighbors. Can we talk about wood burners polluting SW? Sheffield? I have to leave my window open due to damp, and there is now a regular smoky stench drifting in. You will not get most of these people to change because humans have been burning wood since the year 1. It is outrageous that stoves are marketed as eco when lower levels here are still off the charts on some winter's evenings. S11 stinks of burning wood. It is shocking. Complaints on the local Facebook group receive a fairly hostile reception. I would never get a stove. In some parts they pollute more than cars. Well, whatever it is, I do not want it. I am trying to move to Grenoside. I was brought up in Parson Cross where we all had a coal fire and sent our pollution to Rotherham. Now I am in the leafy heights of S10 and doing the same to Parson Cross. It seems think the wood burner will have to be shut down. I am afraid you will not escape wood fires in Grenoside. I am baffled how this has been allowed to happen. 19. The Netherlands Limburg Province Environmental Agency wants Limburg to look into ban on wood burning. NL Times. The province of Limburg should consider a ban on wood burning for private individuals on days when the smoke lingers due to little wind or humid. 20. Asia Northeast Asia PM 2.5 monitoring comparative evaluation of surface level PM 2.5 modeling across Northeast Asia. ScienceDirect.com. Air quality modeling is critical for understanding PM 2.5 sources and pollution dynamics, providing a scientific basis for regulatory and policy. 21. China PM 2.5 pollution characteristics, drivers and regional transport during different. ScienceDirect.com. Particulate matter PM 2.5 pollution events persist in China. The pollution characteristics of PM 2.5 vary during different pollution levels. 22. A PM 2.5 and asthma short-term exposure to fine particulate matter and asthma exacerbation. A large Population environmental health biomed central asthma exacerbations remain a significant global health issue despite advances in management fine particulate matter PM 2.5 particles less than or equal to 2.5 micrometer PM 2.5 and asthma understanding the strong link between air pollution and asthma. American Lung Association common indoor triggers include tobacco wood smoke mold, spores pet dander and dust mites which are often found in carpets. Bedding and upholstery 22 BPM 2.5 and ship emissions environmental and health impacts of reduced PM 2.5 and trace metals from ship emissions ScienceDirect.com atmospheric PM 2.5 contributed by ships decreased after low sulfur fuel oil policy greater benefits in air quality and health were found in 22 CPM 2.5 and source variations quantifying role of source variations on PM 2.5 bound toxic components under climate change. ScienceDirect.com atmospheric particulate matter especially PM 2.5 fine particle matter with aerodynamic diameter less than 2.5 micrometer poses a significant threat to 22 dPm 2. And spikes of fire short-term and cardiovascular event study shows no connection between PM 2.5 spikes and major cardiovascular events news medical PM 2.5 peaks in cardiovascular risk and air card sub-study in a recent study published in the Journal of 22 EPM 2.5 and wood burning OCEC morphology and elemental analysis under varying ignition temperatures. ScienceDirect further observation under TEM EDS showed that carbonaceous particles were the predominant components of PM emitted from poplar wood burning et al.
Cat's Corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Hi, I am Leone. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's Corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your neighborhood epidemiologist. The Mados Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times. One introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View Purple Air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.